and welcome to Telewizja Republika. Actually, since the very beginning of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, the backdrop topic that is parallel to the news stream regarding US and Western support for Ukraine is the issue of Southern American border. This was actually a talking point of each and every political campaign in the United States since Russia attacked Ukraine and since Ukraine defended itself thanks to the dedication of Ukrainian people, Western political support with huge role of my home country, Poland, and US money, and maybe first of all, American-made weapons. But Joe Biden's administration policies were strongly criticized by the political opposition in the United States. The common talking point was, why should American taxpayers pay for Ukrainian sovereignty and Ukrainian defense against Russian aggression, while the American sovereignty, American border, is not protected by the same state, the same government that puts so much effort on supporting an attacked nation fighting against aggression, Ukraine. The problem is that migration flow through Southern American border is not only a problem of lack of effectiveness of migration policies, but rather this migration flow is the migration policy not only of Biden administration, but in the broader sense of a political allies of the people who are in power in Washington right now, and those are allies from around the world. Different states in different parts of the world face the same problem. We know those pictures very well. Since 2015, Europe, my continent, is under constant migration attack. There are at least 3 major routes of migrant flow through the Mediterranean from the states of Northern Africa, leading from Central Africa to the capital cities of European states like Paris, London, and Rome. The second one, another migration flow through Greek and Balkan borders, Turkey, the route that guides straight to Berlin, after infamous Angela Merkel's Willkommen that was expressed in 2015. But the third one that was introduced in 2021, this one is probably the most interesting. When the shocked world, it was 2021, found out that there are Middle Eastern and African migrants that showed up out of nowhere in Belarusian city of Minsk, capital city of the state, ready to start and storm Polish and Lithuanian border to travel to the Berlin through the border that used to be a place of military incursions many times in the history of wars, but actually never was a place, this border, where people from Africa used this place of the world as a door to invade Europe. Maybe in the Mediterranean, but it was a different kind of flow, and it was stopped by the Polish troops in Vienna in 17th century. The reason for which Russian regime decided to use the migration flow as a weapon against the West is destabilizing the NATO eastern flank. The organizers of this found out that this is an effective leverage against Western societies, against the Western states. There are not too many issues that make people concerned like this one, not only because of safety issues, but also because of economical consequences, cultural differences, not mentioning the safety conditions that changed over the span of those 10 years since migration crisis changed the political and social fabric of Europe. Is the migration policy and migration aggression turned out to be effective? Is that the reason for which this kind of things are happening also in the US? It's no surprise that this was promptly used not only as disinfo campaign, but also as a tool of influence to influence the most powerful state in the world, to turn its citizens' focus away from the particular issue, for example, the geopolitical challenges that the nation faces, to something else, the migration. And this would not be possible if United States and its political leaders run normal, regular border policy. Borders were created to separate states and separate nations. That's the reason why they exist. If some state or some politicians resign from separating their own territory from the territory that belongs to someone else, it's like inviting problems to your own backyard. And that is basically what is right now happening in the United States. And no one should be surprised that United States citizens, at least part of them, decide to act when the federal government is inactive, is failing. You can join us on rackracon.com, that's our Substack. You can leave us your email here and wait for our daily reports from the front lines of the ongoing war against the West, because that's what we are going to talk about on my show. My name is Michał Rachoń. This is Rackracon. And we roll in.
Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go!
Our guest tonight to talk about this, and not only about this thing, is Matthew Tyrmand. Welcome back, Matthew. You haven't been for a while on the show, and there is a reason for this. We will talk about it in a minute, but before we do so, Matthew, the thing that is going on around Texas and around the safeguarding of the border of United States and border of Texas, and help of the people who are traveling to Texas to help Texanians.
Texans.
Yeah, Texans to help Texans protect their border is something I never heard of before. What's the issue? What's the reason for which we see this kind of thing?
Well, Trump was elected on much like European righty nationalist populists, on a sovereignty platform. And the key component of that sovereignty was borders and economic nationalism, economic self-interest, not giving up all of the economic upside of the free market capitalist American economy to our adversaries and trading partners. But very wrapped up in that was border security. If you have, millions to tens of millions of people pouring across the border from the third world in the South who are taking jobs, reducing unit labor costs, weighing on the social services, it creates a major economic headwind, a security headwind. Crime goes up, economics in whatever area that crime went up goes down. So Trump really was elected on this. He was able to do certain things to help mitigate the accelerating flow of migration from these third world countries through Mexico itself, and the Central and Latin American countries. He was not able to complete a border wall, even though he did a credible amount of border securement. It was never completed. So, of course, migration continued illegally through those areas where there was no wall and there was no securement. Biden comes in, and the first thing he wants to do is eradicate the wall, get rid of it, and open up the border, while saying, no, we're going to, enforce rule of law. This has always been the cynics among the political observers in the U.S., especially from the right, have always assumed, not to paraphrase too directly, the great replacement theory that a lot of global righties talk about vis-a-vis Davos and Europe and migration. But just the replacement of voters. When you come across the border from the third world, you're an illegal alien. The left, the Democrats in lefty states, especially someplace like California, immediately work to get you on the welfare rolls, immediately work to get you a driver's license, then immediately enable you to vote. If you are an illegal alien, you vote for Democrats because Democrats are giving you free stuff and incentivizing you to come. So right now, Biden administration is totally asleep at the wheel as the largest migrant caravans are coming across the border. We're talking tens of thousands a day. Some estimates, like the Center for Immigration Studies, Mark Krikorian's org, say that we're, approaching not 7 figures of illegal migration, but 8 figures on a per annum basis. That changes the entire, composition of the country with illegal migrants who are, again, a drain on social services, reducing unit labor costs, all sorts of new problems, and crime, of course, because as Trump astutely said, they're not sending their best. If you're willing to break your neighbor to the north, the sovereign nation of the United States law, on just entering the country illegally, you're probably willing to break a lot of other laws as well.
Well, the issue is, and the thing is that probably if you are traveling to another country and you are a citizen or a person of course, there's an exception of the totalitarian, quasi-totalitarian states, you probably do have a possibility or chance to travel legally. The reason
course.
for which you choose to travel illegally always and also tells you something. But there is a strange twist in this history,
Yeah.
because we know the
states.
background, and this
states.
twist is the counter
states.
caravans, I would call
Yeah.
it this way.
Well,
What's
it's
the
the
reason
states.
for which the U.S. citizens travel to Texas? What's the reason for this whole movement of protecting borders?
The righties, especially in the U.S., have always been reactionary. Radical leftists are radical. They keep pushing the Overton window of what's acceptable as they try and break down the established order to usher in Marxist utopia. Well, what does the right do? They react. That's why conservatives are called reactionaries. We're constantly reacting to the radicals' overreach. And now the reactionary pendulum over this issue, really, again, much like 2016, the seminal primary issue of the 2024 election cycle is this migration and unfettered southern border. And the border states, Texas being the biggest one, and nominally a Republican state with a Republican governor, 2 Republican senators, a frontier spirit. You think of the Old West. These are conservatives. These are people who believe in the First and Second Amendment, carrying a gun, protecting themselves. They're stepping up and doing that. Citizens are going to the border and they're saying, if the federal government won't do it, we're going to do it ourselves. Governors like Greg Abbott, the Texas governor, saying federal government's asleep at the wheel. They're totally screwing us. We're the ones who are going to be accountable to their crap decision making that is destroying rule of law in our state because of this migration. So they're taking action.
Matthew, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like we got I don't know if it's a conflict of states against the federal government.
Yes, by the way,
and it
that's not a new
immediately
thing.
brings all the memories and all the historical questions and the contexts that are obvious.
I know, some people would say, okay, are we heading to civil war? I would argue we're not. The entire American system is predicated on what's called the Federalist system. We're a confederation of independent states that are confederated under a federal order, with the Constitution being the tie that binds. The supremacy clause, that, the highest level of law is federal, it goes down. But if the federal government's abrogating their own responsibility, the states are going to fight back. And by the way, we've had states fighting with the federal government over every issue for the last 200 years. This is what the Supreme Court exists to adjudicate. So the states are fighting back. And you have another twist in this, is that you've had governors like Greg Abbott and Governor DeSantis in Florida take some of these illegal migrants and send them up north via busing or plane tickets.
Remember that.
Yeah, DeSantis did a stunt to Martha's Vineyard, a wealthy Dem area, and they said, we don't want migrants here. Well, no shit. Yet, these are the Dems who say, hug a tree, kumbaya, open the borders, blah, blah, blah. When it gets to there, there's an American expression, NIMBY, not in my backyard. So these are do as I say, not as I do liberals. Of course they are. In Texas, they're sending them up to, big cities, New York, Chicago. And now the mayors of New York and Chicago are saying, no, we can't handle this. This is,
we would like to share. We would like to solve this problem, but far away from our affluent neighborhoods.
Yeah. Once it becomes in their backyard and their neighborhood, all of a sudden they start saying, "Okay, now the feds have to do something." Now, to them, the answer is just give us money and fund this more. Now, like Milei said in Argentina, there's no more money left. And in Argentina, after being lied to for 50 years, they all clapped and, we're thrilled to hear the truth for once. But, the Chicago mayor, who's a real radical Marxist teachers union activist, he, is even saying, this is a problem that predates him, but like he can't have this in Chicago because now the social welfare system is stressed to the brink and the breaking point. Same thing with Eric Adams, another hard left.
The thing and the whole discussion and the context of Ukrainian war, the Russian war in Ukraine, of this dualism, or whether to protect border or support Ukraine in this fight against Russia. We've been discussing it over and over again. But you've spent some time in a place where I saw for the first time a massive border construction, massive border walls. And I'm not speaking about the wall and the border construction that everyone thinks of in terms of Israel, but the one between Israel and Egypt in the southern part of Israel. There is a modern construction over there protecting the territory of Israel. What's your take?
Actually, I got to correct you. That wall, and by the way, Trump would call it correctly so, a big, beautiful wall, and walls
And it
work.
is, yeah.
That wall is to protect Egypt from Gaza. The Egyptians don't want the Gazans pouring in, the so-called Palestinians. So, that's an important distinction. Israel's got some, strong fencing around Gaza, not strong enough as we saw on October 7th. But the southern Gazan border wall and the famous Rafah crossing, RAFAH, that is an Egyptian-administered crossing because they don't want these people like Israel.
Yeah, this is the thing that is very interesting. I mean, the context of the border, big beautiful wall, big beautiful fence, close to beautiful city of Eilat, is a construction that is very interesting.
It's not that close to Eilat. Eilat's by the Red Sea. It's down here.
And that's the fence I'm talking about. If you haven't seen this fence, you should go there and you should see it, because it is very interesting, and it is a modern construction that stopped the illegal migration and the flow of all the stuff that Israel didn't want to have over there in this place on the south of Israel on the Red Sea and Bay of Aqaba. But you've spent some time in Israel. What's the reason for this?
Well, I went on a journalist trip. Republican young Jewish conservatives hosted World Zionist Organization. It wasn't just Jews, but I will tell you, and it wasn't just young people because I'm freaking old. It was conservatives, Republicans, righties. MSNBC wasn't sending anyone, though I did spend some time with Malcolm Nance in Tel Aviv, and he's quite a charming and erudite fellow. We went to the Gaza envelope, the kibbutz that were attacked, the cities near like Sderot and Ofakim that had many people killed, many people kidnapped, went to the Nova Festival site, Re'im, where 400 young people were slaughtered in, a big open space, the concert goers that Saturday morning at 6, 7, 8 a.m. And then, did a military exercise and saw the way the IDF transports people and services and humanitarian aid into Gaza. And then the more interesting and more novel, thing I did, I worked with, a good Central European outlet that I work with from time to time, Visegrad 24, and went to Ramallah, went to Hebron, and then went to Ramallah. And I just did a podcast with Josh Hammer, who I think you know, from Newsweek, so that's online. 40 minutes, really deep dive about Ramallah. And the 3-point takeaway in Ramallah is it's the money laundering factory of the world. I mean, this place is EU, US, UN money. It is incredibly wealthy. So when you hear occupation, apartheid, open air prison, it's all bullshit. These people are living like kings. Gold jewelry stores everywhere, Maseratis, Range Rovers, Mercedes, BMWs. I'll be posting the photos. I probably have 300 photos from the 12 hours spent there. Certainly a little dicey being, an American of Jewish descent, but, quite interesting. The attitudes they have, and Visegrad will be doing, video content about that in the coming weeks as we break it down and edit it. But it's not, it's not the refugee camps with tents like in Mozambique. These are fixed structures, even the refugee camps, which albeit are relatively more poor for Ramallah standards, but they're fixed structures with indoor plumbing. My guess is there's probably a higher preponderance of indoor plumbing in Ramallah's refugee camps than in all of Russia, which is a backwater where, you get out of Moscow and St. Petersburg.
So what is the reason? No. Because the thing that puzzles me when I watch the reaction of the world on what happened on the 7th October, what is the reason for which the world refuses to condemn the terrorist activity of Hamas? I mean, the scale of those atrocities, of those crimes, of those brutal murders was just incredible, and still the world left, I'm sorry to say that, but that's true, doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that we are talking about the brutal terrorist organization.
Look, I'm, this is we could sit down and do a 2-hour discussion on cultural Marxism, leftist politics, but I can paraphrase Millet once again and describe it in 2 words. Shit leftists, as he calls them, in the public debate quite frequently. The same people who, are still calling it Polish death camps. Ursula von der Leyen, who should know better, is still calling it Polish death camps to absolve Germany from its rooted sin operating these death camps in occupied Poland. The left revises history. The left uses history and current events to manipulate for their desired outcome, which is, again, Marxist socialist utopia. Israel is a successful state filled with people who, despite being subject to the oldest bigotry and the original bigotry of anti-Semitism, seem to produce. That already puts them at odds with the left, because through the capitalist metric and framework, they succeed, and they by default become oppressors. Jews, supposedly the conception of Jews is that they're, white, and Ashkenazi Jews from Central Europe, like my family, are certainly white. You go to Israel, it is the rainbow coalition of skin tone, and that doesn't matter. Most of these morons marching in the college campuses who don't know the river or the sea that they're quoting when they say from the river to the sea, they don't have a freaking clue. Yeah, they don't have a clue. These are just fully coerced sheep. There's a reason Marxists go to the young and coerce them through emotionality, because they're coercible, because they're stupid, they're lazy, and they're driven by emotion.
That's sad in a way.
Of course it is. But that's why we exist. We exist to tell the truth. We exist to be reactionary, to be the counterculture. The culture is always going to go by emotion. What feels good is good, and they are going to pervert the fact pattern.
Was built on the Judeo-Christian culture, on the Greek philosophy, on the Roman law, and those are the fundamentals that are being destroyed right now as we watch this ongoing war against the West. Matthew Tyrmand is a witness and a fighter on the front lines of this cultural war.
So good to be with you.
See you, mate. Hope we're going to have a chance to talk next.
Every day. Every day.
Ciao. Ladies and gentlemen, you can join us on rackracon.com. There is a Substack account over there. You can leave us your email and wait for our daily reports. We try to send you daily reports and try to dig deeper into the issues that are published online all around the world, so that you know ahead of the curve what's going to happen next. See you soon. Bye-bye.